Hello and welcome to Q Sports. I'm Udu Gajaga. Thank you very much for joining us. Coming up tonight, we're talking about Africa's representative at the World Cup. It's 5 countries. They've all been involved in international friendly matches. That is to shape up their teams ahead of the World Cup in late November to early December. We will also be looking at some of the teams that are taking part in international friendlies, but excluding the Gambia. What is happening? Why are the Scorpions not in action? Because international football matches, friendlies for that matter, are important when it comes to the points, and also it helps you to better prepare your team. And Gambia's coach Tom Semfield have always been keen on international friendly matches to have that match sharpness for his boys and also see how to make them play better against their opponents. We'll also be looking at the Gambia under-23 team. They're playing in the qualifiers. Their first leg against Burkina Faso. The game was played in Benin, Cotonou, and they won by a 1-0 thanks to Lamin Jajo. When he came in as a substitute, he was fouled in the box. It becomes a penalty, and Mamadou Bojang scored that goal. And they will play the second leg on Tuesday. We'll also be looking at Nawetan football, and this time is the Knockout Cup in Gunjur. 2 teams that are relegated from the Nawetan, they both finished bottom of their group and got relegated, but one of them, at least in the knockout, has salvaged something. We'll be looking at that as well. All that on tonight's Q Sports. Welcome and thank you if you're just joining us. This is Q Sports and I'm Mamadou Kachika. First, we're looking at the Africa's representatives at the Football World Cup in Qatar, which is going to be held in November, late November, and also it would go on up to early December. Senegal, Morocco and Tunisia are the countries that have won in their international friendlies. That is, all 5 have been involved. Cameroon lost, of course, and Ghana also lost. Cameroon lost to Uzbekistan by 2-0, and Ghana lost to the Samba Boys, Brazil, 3-0. All 3 goals were scored in the first half. And for Tunisia, they beat Comoros 1-0. And Morocco were 2-0 winners against Chile, while Senegal also won by 2-0 against South American side Bolivia. Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this is journalist Ade Darame. Joining me in the studio is Ade Darame. Ade, we're going to look at these 5 countries. Well, at least Senegal and Morocco, Tunisia, all registered victories in their different friendlies. Sure. But for Ghana, they lost, and you know it's really Cameroon also losing to Uzbekistan by 2-0. Yes. How do you fancy the chances of Africa? We know there is a long way to go. Yes, sure. This is just one of the friendlies.
These are friendlies, and some of them were probably trying out formations. I think Ghana probably took on the hardest task in taking on Brazil. Brazil have a very good team and a very good squad right now. So for Ghana to take them on shows a bit of bravery. But it's good because, you know, you want to measure yourself against the best. It was a hard, competitive game. I watched it. It didn't look like a friendly. It looked like they were playing a final. I mean, the way tackles were flying in. Nobody was holding back. And some of the tackles were pretty dangerous from both sides.
Yeah, especially knowing that they're both going to get into the World Cup to compete.
This is it. I mean, you're both qualified, but I guess in that way you make it a more realistic match. It's not a, you know, one of these. When we were growing up, we never even used to call them friendlies. We used to call them exhibition matches.
Exhibition matches, yeah.
And so they didn't want it to be an exhibition match. They wanted it to be a real test. Both teams wanted it to be a real test, both Brazil and Ghana, and so it proved to be. But Brazil, you know, Richarlison scored 2 wonderful goals, and they looked very, very good.
Yes, and looking at the goals, many Ghanaians would criticize. They say they're quite easy. They all scored in the first half, and at least 2 of them come through set pieces.
Set pieces, and that's a danger for them. But that's the beauty of these friendlies. You can see your mistakes and you can correct them
Correct.
before the real thing starts. I mean, the one that Richarlison, he just beat the fullback and volleyed home, from a set piece, and similar thing happened again. So, as I said, you learn from your mistakes in these games, but it would have given them food for thought, certainly. But nonetheless, it was a tough game, and they didn't choose an easy opponent. Actually, none of them did. I guess we'll come to the others, but none of them chose easy opponents. But Ghana certainly chose the toughest.
How good was Inaki Williams, the fantastic player that switched nationality not long ago?
He switched not long ago. He was okay. I mean, none of the Ghanaian team, I thought, played fantastically well. Inaki was slightly ineffective, but he didn't have a bad game. But I think Brazil were far superior and actually could have won by more.
Exactly. Looking at Senegal, neighbours, they won against Bolivia, 2-0.
2-0. Again, as I said earlier, none of the teams took the easy option of choosing easy opponents. Bolivia, some people might say, who are Bolivia? Actually, they've got a really good team right now because, sometimes it happens in a generation where, as has happened with Senegal right now, Senegal has got a very good team over the last 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years. And it's the same with Bolivia. Right now, Bolivia have got a very good team and very tough opponents. If you see them in the South American Championships, they give every team a hard time. Even if they lose, whether it's Brazil or Argentina or any of the big boys, Uruguay, they still give them a hard time. So good victory there by Senegal. Sadio Mane got the second goal, and Boulaye got the first goal. And they looked good.
And it could have been more as well, because Senegal missed chances.
They missed chances, and that's something they'll have to tighten up on, because when you get to the World Cup, a missed chance could be the difference between a draw or possibly even a defeat. So when you have your chances, take them. Don't say, it's only a friendly, because you sharpen up your instincts by playing in these friendlies and scoring goals. Germany, famously in the old days, before they would go into a big tournament, they actually wouldn't play against any of the big teams. They would choose second or third division teams, and then they'd beat them 20 or 30-0, because they wanted to give their forwards the confidence of scoring lots of goals.
A lot of goals.
But they don't do that anymore, but they used to do that in the old days.
Let's talk about Cameroon. Well, the way they qualify, it was against Algeria. You and I watched that game.
We watched the game.
Almost through a scrap. Yes, deservedly, but also through a bit of luck. But these things will always come in football.
They kind of
losing to Uzbekistan.
They limped to it. And really, if there was a shock result from all the African ones, it was probably that one. Because I don't think anybody expected them to lose to Uzbekistan. But when you look at the team that they put out on the field, Brian Mbeumo, first game for Cameroon, it was a kind of experimental.
Okay.
So you can forgive them that. And of course, as I said earlier, if you are going to experiment, these are the games in which you experiment. So it was worrying, because even with an experimental side, you would have expected them to beat Uzbekistan, but they didn't. And Uzbekistan didn't win by luck. They were deserved winners. If you saw the highlights, they deserved to win the game. It wasn't a fluke.
Tunisia, they beat Comoros 1-0.
Yeah, and before the game, the Tunisia coach had talked up Comoros quite a lot, saying this is a really hard team. And after the game, he said to the press, "What did I tell you?"
Did I tell you?
He said they were a really tough team to play against, very well organized, very well drilled, and we found it hard to break them down. He said, but in a way, that's why we chose to play against them, because we knew that it would be a tough match, and so it proved to be. Comoros, as we know, they qualified for the last AFCON, and did really well. And again, it's good to see that they've kept pretty much the same squad. A couple of their players have retired, but pretty much the same, and they gave Tunisia a really hard game.
Well, one of Africa's top-notch sides these days is Morocco, winning against Chile 2-0. That should be good. Some good result.
Chile right now, they're up there after Argentina, Brazil, probably Chile and Uruguay next, in South American terms. So to beat them and beat them convincingly, again, this was one where the team that won deserved to win. It wasn't a fluke. And they looked really good. They looked very, very good. And of course, Hakim Ziyech was back after his...
Yes, I was going to bring that after all the controversy of all the things. But I know, you know, when you felt things are not working well, every party can say this, they can blame the other party.
Of course.
But once things are put into place, of course, he needs Morocco. More than Morocco needs him, or is it either way?
Yeah, I think the Moroccan fans wanted him. He's very much loved by the Moroccan fans. And actually, they were quite happy to see the coach go if it meant that Hakim Ziyech would come back.
Yes.
That's how much they love him.
They love him.
And he's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic player. And so, yeah, whether... I mean, look, I don't like it when players take that kind of stance and saying, I'm withdrawing from international football until you get rid of the coach. You're forcing your football association, you're giving them an ultimatum. You know, it's him or me. And I don't like that when players do that. But, you know, he did it as a matter of principle. He stuck to his guns. And in a way, it was proved right because they got rid of the coach, albeit the coach who got them to the World Cup. And so we have this fantastic scenario where all 5 African teams at the World Cup will be coached by African coaches. Fantastic. Never happened before.
Well, away from that, we must have to send our condolences to the Senegalese coach Aliou Cissé. On this day 20 years ago, it was the Bateau Le Joola, that's the boat that capsized along the coast of Gambia. We all know the story, as the BBC documentary would suggest. Aliou Cissé having a family member, losing a family member, and sister and then 10 others.
10 family members.
Yes.
And as you said, 26th of September is the anniversary of that. And our colleague Choi had been very interested in this case. And what's remarkable, when you watch the documentary, as an American actually says in it, a guy who formerly worked at NASA, formerly was a sailor, he said, I was shocked that so little coverage of this was done around the world when you think that this happened in what we call the information age. He said more people died on this boat than died in the Titanic.
Titanic, yes.
He said, yet everybody knows the Titanic. Everybody knows the story. He said, and I just saw a story in the New York Times, I think it was, or the Washington Post, one of those. He said, and I was expecting a follow-up the next day, and there wasn't.
Definitely.
He said, I was shocked, I was disgusted.
I saw the comment section on the YouTube page, and people were like, okay, I'm getting this for the first time. How dare comes this wasn't reported, you know, albeit, you know, everything else making international headlines.
Well, I can anchor that by saying that I sent it to about 10 or 12 Sierra Leonean WhatsApp groups, which between them have maybe a combined, I don't know, 2,000 members. Not a single person said they had known the story before. They were all thanking me for alerting them to the story. Not a single person said, oh yes, I know this. Everybody who commented said, I'm hearing about this for the first time.
I was 15 then, and thanks to the BBC, because of my passion for news, I got it midnight on that very night when it happened. Yeah, so quite a tragedy.
Truly shocking.
There were football teams.
Yeah,
there was a team
of young boys.
Young boys, you know, at least 26 of them moving from the Dakar area to the Casamance area. So it's really sad.
I mean, if people want to watch it, it's on YouTube. It's called Le Joola, Africa's Titanic. And definitely well worth watching, very well put together. They spoke to survivors. They spoke to family members who'd lost, including, of course, Aliou Cissé, who's now the coach of Senegal. And our condolences to them, and I think to the people of Senegal, because this was something that sent shockwaves through Senegal. I know this is not a political program, but as you've brought it up, I think it's worth mentioning that in 2005, the World Bank gave the Senegalese government $20 million to raise the wreck of that ship. They have not done anything with it. $20 million in 2005.
Well, I would have loved us to go into the details of this discussion, but since it's a sports program, but the reason why we're talking about it is also it has some sports connections.
Of course it does.
Top coach, top African coach, he qualifies his team to the World Cup on 2 successive occasions, and also Africa Cup of Nations winner Aliou Cissé has been somebody who's been devastated by something that happened some 20 years ago. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we're talking about international friendlies, how important they are, and Gambia not taking part, at least for the first time, in about 2 years of Tom Samped's time in Gambia. Welcome back, and thank you very much if you're just joining us. This is Q Sports, and I'm Mamudu Kajaga. Now, we're still talking about international football. Well, all nations, I would say, that are in competitive football usually use the FIFA international calendar dates to either have friendlies or get into competition or things of that nature. Gambia have been doing that consistently, at least since Thompson Field signed a contract with the Gambia Football Federation in 2018 to date. This time around, we're not certain what happens, because I'll try to reach out to him to get to him why we've not been involved this time. The international friendlies.
I think it's a surprise to everybody because, as you rightly say, every national team coach, you take the opportunity that's given to you to try new player, try new systems, whatever. You don't let it just come and go without doing anything. As you said, people in some instances, they've got competitions going on. So in Europe, they've got the Nations
League,
League going on. England have been relegated. I think Wales have been relegated as well. Scotland and England. I think Wales could probably go up if they beat Poland.
And France were almost
relegated. I mean, they were abysmal. They lost, but they stayed in. So they've used that for that. So it's been a bit of a surprise that Gambia didn't take an opportunity. They could have reached out to one of the nations that's not playing and say, let's have a friendly. I mean, even Sierra Leone played a friendly against South Africa. Got thrashed 4-0. But at least it gave the coach an opportunity to try new players and new systems. Yeah. So I'm not sure why, because I don't think there's been an explanation.
And he's been a coach who's been so much keen when it comes to international football, having, trial for new players and, getting them competitive. And also, you secure match points in this, in terms of your ranking in FIFA.
Rankings.
Yeah, because if you win, it helps boost your ranking.
Absolutely. You don't get the same ranking as if you've won a competitive match, but you do get points if you win even a friendly. So it's a missed opportunity, and I'm not sure why. Maybe there'll be an explanation, but at the moment you and I have been grasping to find out what that explanation is, and we haven't seen or heard anything yet.
Well, we're looking forward to the reason. We'll talk to the coach, Tom Sanfield, anytime he avails us the opportunity to talk to him. Mr. Adedarame, thank you very much for your time.
As ever, thank you very, very much. Always a pleasure to come on Q Sports. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. We'll take a short break and we'll continue with other segments of Q Sports. Thank you. Now we will be talking about the Gambia under-23 team, who got a hard-fought 1-0 victory against Burkina Faso. But this game was played in Cotonou, that is in Benin, and the Gambia won thanks to a penalty. Mamadou Bojang, who took the spot kick and scored after Lamin Jaju, who had a fantastic performance despite coming in the second half, was brought down in the box because of his brilliant dribbling skills. He was brought down and Mamadou Bojang stepped up to score the penalty, which was the only goal, although Gambia had several chances in the match, but didn't finish their chances. And they go into the second leg against Burkina Faso, the return leg, which is going to be a home match for Gambia, but the game is going to be played in Marrakesh, Morocco, since our independent stadium is not fit to host international matches, that is competitive matches. So unfortunately, that's where the game is going to be played on Tuesday. We will also be looking at the Nawetan football, currently in Gunjur. Well, two teams that have been relegated, that is Misira United and Fabo FC, played. They finished bottom of their respective groups in the Nawetan League, but now in the knockout, it was Misira United who edged out Fabo by a 1-0. More in this report. Abdul Jaju scored a beautiful goal for Misira United in their 1-0 victory over Fabo FC in the preliminaries of the Gunjur Knockout Cup. There was a beautiful piece of play by Alaji Drame from midfield before laying a pass for Abdul Jaju to finish. Fabo FC became a rejuvenated side in the second half with 3 clear-cut chances. Fresh from coming on as substitutes, Buba Toure set up Sirifo Jata, whose shot was blocked. Buba was unselfish and could have gone for glory, as he appeared clean on goal. Moments later, Alaji Pui had a glorious one-on-one chance with the keeper. Lamin Sedi made a brilliant save. Amadou Kebe, coach of Misira United, was full of praise for his players who defended a 1-0 score.
Yeah, I'm content about working naka Tonya Liat Ale because the football nga ko win and loss long. Ama easy. Nga ligo playing around no kono solo ke limbar lokta. So in sida. So na no ka ko feel bila nga start. So na first game nga try nga win. So football amba min for football ale. Football ama isa ko liata naka. Ligo football kono. Always naka try patient because bini ma so me ba soro lale. So all football ni na wait dal. So na bo solo content ya kata bagal because football ko mi alon ka ay kono fala ay nya bol dal.
I am very happy with my team's performance. In football, you must be patient to get results. We've been knocked out in the league, but at least we have salvaged something for the knockout. Fabrama Jane, coach of Fabu FC, reflected on his team's missing chances.
If you don't score your chances, count yourself out. You will not make it. Because if you're able to score 1 or 2, the game will decide. So they don't score the chances. You know, I think when we go back to the training ground, though we lost for this season, we are out for the tournament, we are out for the knockout. But God willing, next season we will make a preparation for it. And God willing, trust me, next year, this time, come and check me. We will win the trophy.
Missouri United had something to play for, at least making it into the round of 16 of the Knockout Cup. As for Fabu FC, it's a season they will not want to forget. Well, that's it for Q Sports tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Join us next week for more sports. Have a pleasant night. Bye.